About 5 years ago, I lived downtown in a major city in the US. I'd always been a night person, so I'd often find myself bored after my roommate, who is decidedly not a night person, went to sleep. To pass time, I used to go for long walks and spend time thinking. I spent 4 years like that, walking alone at night, and never had one reason to feel afraid. I always used to joke with my roommate that even the drug dealers in this city were pretty polite. But all of that changed in just a few minutes of one evening. It was a Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was walking near a police patrol park quickly, quite a ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weekend, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park, as most nights, was completely empty. I turned on a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street, on my side, was the silhouette of a man dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to the waltz, but as he finished each box, he would end it with a forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance walking and headed straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close to the side of the road as I could to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass me. The closer he got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He was very tall and lanky and wearing an old suit. He danced closer still until I could make out his face. His eyes were open wide and wild, head tilted back slightly looking off into the sky. His mouth was formed into a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he could dance any closer. I took my eyes off him to cross the street. As I reached the other side, I glanced back and stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing and was standing there, 1 foot in the street, perfectly parallel to me. He was facing me and still looking skyward, smile wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about a half a block between us, I watched the sidewalk in front of me. The street and the sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments, I felt relieved until I noticed him. He'd crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to the distance and shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I had looked away for no more than 10 seconds. It was clear he moved fast. I was shocked at that. I stood there for some time staring at him, and he started to move towards me again. He took giant, exaggerated, tiptoed steps as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone, except he was moving very quickly. I'd like to say at this point that I ran away or something, or pulled out my pepper spray or my cell phone or anything, but I didn't. I just stood there, completely frozen as the smiling man crept towards me. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me, still smiling and still looking skyward. When I finally found my voice, I blurted out the first thing that came to my mind. What I meant to ask was, "What do you want?" in a very angry and commanding tone, but what came out was a whimper. What? Regardless of whether humans can smell fear, they can certainly hear it, and I heard it in my own voice, and that only made me more afraid. But he didn't react to it at all. He just stood there, smiling, and after what felt like forever, he turned around and very slowly started dance-walking away. Just like that. Not wanting to turn my back to him again, I watched him go, until he was almost far enough away that he was out of sight. But then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, and nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him grew larger and larger. He was coming back my way, and this time, he was running. I ran too. I ran until I was off the side road and onto a better lit road with sparse traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of the way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see his stupid smile. But he was never there. I lived in that city for 6 months after that night and never went out for another walk. There was something about his face that always haunted me. He didn't look drunk or high. He looked completely and utterly insane. And that's a very, very scary thing to see.